Welcome back to Home with the Hearsts. Today I'm going to be showing you what we eat in a week as a family of 6 and also a few updates on our home. So we've been living in a 1-bedroom cabin for 3 years now, and that has come with lots of challenges, but we are officially moved over into our addition. We've added on 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So what you're seeing me do now right here is load some books onto bookshelves, which I will be showing you guys how those bookshelves were built in a later video, but basically we had to cover up some areas where our windows used to be because it's now a wall. So I love how it turned out really good. Now I am not going to be making anything drastic for these meals, but these are some meals that my family loves. So the first meal that I am making is some sourdough tortillas. And these I have on the blog. I will post a link in the description box below on the recipe for these. But it's basically just flour and butter, some sourdough starter, and some more water. And I was working with a different type of flour here, so I was having to adjust and add and just kind of watch things, how they went into the mixer. So I am just working with it, adding a little bit of flour at a time until it's the right consistency. But what I do with these is I typically double the recipe that's on my blog because our family eats so many of them. And now I do it just a tad bit differently than I have on the blog, which I need to update that. But I will roll it into like a really big log, and then I'll use my, I think it's a pastry cutter, I'm not really sure, a dough cutter, and I will cut them into even sections. I think I got way more out of this one than I normally do because of the flour consistency. So I will just go down and slice it. Side note here, I try to remember to feed my starter like as soon as I can. So, and my kids love to help out with this recipe. They love to roll out the tortillas. So we have their very own rolling pins, and they actually worked better in this situation than mine because mine was just too big for this space at the time. We have so much stuff on our countertops trying to put things in places until we can get things moved. So there's just really not a lot of space on the countertop. But what you want to do when you're rolling these out is to flour your surface and then roll your dough out on a floured surface. And you may even need to put a little bit of flour on your rolling pin too if it's starting to stick to your rolling pin. Sometimes if I have a good consistency, I can really just kind of stretch them out most of the way and then roll them. But once they are rolled out, we're going to fry them in some lard or some butter, just something healthy in fats, and on a iron skillet. To go in these tortillas, we are going to put some ground beef, and I just make up my own seasoning for the ground beef. It consists of cumin and garlic, chili powder, salt. Occasionally I will throw in some cayenne pepper. My kids aren't too fond of it. Some pepper flakes. I don't know. I just kind of usually stick to the cumin, chili powder, salt, and garlic powder, and basically just use what I can. I eyeball it. I do not measure everything out. I just smell it and taste it, and if it tastes good, then we got it right. So this is the result of the tacos. We put some beef, cheese, some rice on there, some sour cream, and they were good and delicious. After supper, I had two kids wanting two different desserts. They wanted marshmallows and ice cream, so we decided to make both. I like to make my marshmallows healthy, and I usually use a candy thermometer to make these, but mine was broken. I found it in the dish strainer, just shattered, so I'm not really sure what happened to it, but anyways, I am just trying to do this by memory and hope that it sticks. It didn't turn out exactly the right way that I wanted it to, but it was still edible and it tasted really good. So what you do is you take a tablespoon of beef gelatin. We have grass-fed beef gelatin in here, so really good. And we take a little bit of salt and a little bit of vanilla extract, about a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a third a cup of water, and you mix all that in a bowl and let that sit. And while that's sitting, we will put a cup of maple syrup into the pot and bring it to a boil. Now, it's supposed to be, I think, like 210 degrees. I can't remember exactly. On my candy thermometer, it said like soft boil. And once it got to that point, then you take it off. You put it in the same bowl as your other ingredients, and you mix it until it comes almost at a stiff peak. Not super runny, but not super stiff either, because you want to be able to like pour it out into your bowl. And I poured it into a buttered dish. I didn't use lard, I used butter. And then we ate graham crackers with them. They're so good. These are not really good for roasting though, and you can see that this consistency is still a little bit soft. But again, it was more like a marshmallow dip than an actual marshmallow, but still very, very good. And the kids love them, and it's so good and a lot healthier for you than high fructose corn syrup. Next up was some homemade vanilla ice cream. So we bought a ice cream maker off of Amazon, and I will link in the description box below the one that we have. So you take the bowl that goes in the ice cream maker and you put it in the freezer. So it was already in the freezer, and now we are getting our cream and our milk and our sugar and our vanilla all mixed up. I like to mix it all up in a bowl first, because if not, everything kind of sticks to the ice cream maker and it doesn't really get all mixed up really well. So I think it's like 3 cups of cream, which we skimmed off the top of our milk, and 2.5 cups of whole milk, a tablespoon of vanilla extract, a little bit of salt, and I think that was it on this. It's super simple. And basically, you just throw it in the ice cream maker, and 25 minutes later, it's ready. We did not get a shot of the ice cream actually finished. Sorry about that. But we did use the ice cream. We ate some that night, and we also ate some another night, which you will see in this video. Now, I'm getting ready for a pizza. So my 2 oldest children are on the swim team for the summer, and they have a meet this night. So I am getting a pizza ready for us to eat before we go to their meet. This is one of their favorite meals, so I wanted to kind of give them a little treat before they go and did their swim meet. So this is also on the blog. I can link it down below. If you're on my newsletter, then you will have already gotten this recipe. So if you want to sign up for my newsletter, then you can sign up for that in the description box below as well. But I also got a FaceTime call during this, so it's life. But anyways, so for this pizza crust, you are going to take 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of sourdough starter, 1 to 3/4 cup of water, and then I put in a bunch of my own spices. I put in basil, oregano, a little bit of garlic powder, about a tablespoon of salt. I think that's about right. And again, I don't measure all this stuff. I just kind of like eyeball it as far as seasonings go, because I don't know. I just rather dip my fingers in there, pinch out a few things, see what looks good, what smells good, and go with the flow. But once you get all that mixed up, you can either let that sit to ferment, or if you're running low on time like I am, you can go ahead and cook it. Now, if you are gluten sensitive, then that's something you want to do, is make sure that you give it time to ferment, like 8 hours at least. But I was running low on time, and we aren't too bad in this family on gluten, so, and all of our stuff's organic, so just trying to do what I can with the time that I have. I go ahead and I preheat my oven, and I put my cast iron skillet in the oven. Now, my husband got me this beautiful, massive cast iron skillet for Mother's Day, and I'm cooking this pizza in it. I love it. You'll see me use it again in another meal throughout this week, and I use it quite often. It goes in the oven, it cooks on top of the stove. I just love it, and it's so big. So I preheated my oven with the cast iron skillet in it, and while it was preheating, I was chopping up all the stuff that I wanted to go either on top or into my pizza sauce. Now, I always make my own pizza sauce. I either just buy a can of tomato sauce, or diced tomatoes, or if it's in the summer and I have my own tomatoes, then I'll just make my own sauce. I don't ever make it into an actual pizza sauce or pasta sauce. I just leave it as the tomato sauce, so that I can flavor it however I want to, when I want to, and I'm not stuck with a pizza sauce or a pasta sauce, if that makes sense. All right, so I am going to pour this batter into my iron skillet, and it's been greased with lard, so it's really good. And this one is a little bit more runny. If you were to let it sit and ferment, it would probably be more doughy, and you could actually like stretch it and roll it out with a rolling pin. But I am just going to pour this into my iron skillet and kind of like push it out with my fingers all the way to the ends, being careful not to burn myself, even though I did burn myself a little bit, and I have before. Yeah, so I just kind of push it all the way to the edge, creating a little bit of a bowl in the middle so that it has a nice crust, and there's a place for all of the toppings to sit in there. Once the crust is in the oven, it's going to bake at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes, which gives me time to make my sauce, get my beef ground up or whatever meat I'm going to put on there, get my vegetables chopped up, all the stuff that goes on top. This one took me a little bit longer than typical because I was loading it down. For the sauce, I chopped up an onion. I think I did a half an onion. There's some bad spots in this onion, so I wanted to make sure I got that out. But I take my can of diced tomatoes or sauce, whatever it is, I pour it in a pot, and then I put more spices. So the key to having good flavored food is to spice and season everything. Don't just do one thing and think that that's enough. Like, it's just usually never enough. So I took an onion, and I took some fresh herbs from our garden. I think this was Thai basil, some lemon basil, and I put some salt in there and a clove of garlic, chopped that up, and let that simmer on the stove so that it kind of blends the flavors. And then I wanted to use my immersion blender to make it less chunky and more of like a sauce. We also get our mozzarella cheese in big, huge blocks from As Your Standard, and I just shred it. We use mozzarella so much with pizza and spaghetti and a lasagna, and the kids just eat it, you know, raw, like chopped up in cubes. So it's a big money saver, and it's a lot healthier than getting it already pre-shredded or pre-packaged. So we just buy the big 6-pound block of it, and I will shred that and put it on top of our pizza. Now for a little guy, he's about 8 months in this video. We have started giving him Serenity baby foods, and he is loving it. So these puffs are made of like bone broth and cassava flour, and it's helping him to work on his motor skills, and he really enjoys them. So while I'm cooking, sometimes if I need a little chance because he's crying or he's fussy or something like that, I can put him in the high chair and give him a few of those and finish what I started. The bad thing about using an immersion blender with a hot pasta sauce is that sometimes if it's not deep enough, it will splash out, and it's hot. It will burn you. So I'm trying to do this as easy as I can and still make it blended well enough to put it on the pizza sauce. My kids do not really like the texture of onions, but they said this is the best pizza that they'd ever had. So I think I got them blended up well enough for them to not necessarily know that the onions were in there, but to give it a really good flavor. So I will pour that pasta sauce onto the crust once it is finished, and then we will add in the rest of our toppings. And once that's done, I will then put it back in the oven. I'll bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes and then put it on low broil for about 5 minutes so that the cheese and the toppings get kind of crispy, which makes it so good. And once that's done, I can serve it to the family. And this is a simple meal. It takes a little bit longer if you're adding all of the ingredients yourself, but still really good. So I have this kind of game that I play when I am cooking, I guess. So when I put something in the oven or I have a timer set for something, I will try to get as much of the kitchen cleaned while that is finishing up baking or cooking, finishing up the timer. So this day I was actually able to get all of the dishes done while the pizza was cooking, which was really nice because we had to leave like as soon as we got done eating, so we didn't really have time to finish all the other dishes that were used during supper. But this pizza was so good, and the kids did really well at their swim meet. Your turn. Yeah. Amen. Good job. This is the night that I got to use my big skillet for one entire meal again. And I cooked several different things. So we were basically having some leftover stuff as well as some freshly cooked stuff. I had some fresh broccoli from our garden, which was amazing. We threw in some other vegetables. I think there's some peppers and tomatoes, some onions in there. I had some thinly sliced chicken breasts in there. Put some seasoning on that. We had some leftover taco beef from the couple of nights before, and then some leftover sweet potatoes that we had cooked a couple nights before as well. So just throwing all this together on the skillet, and you can move it around based on, you know, what needs to be cooked more because of the temperature. So, and then I'm also making some waffles. Yeah, and we're putting ice cream on them. Yeah, for dessert. I don't know why I can't lose weight. No, this was so good, and I do allow myself some nice treats for the weekends, and I work out throughout the week, so I don't feel too bad about it. I do try to limit this, but these are sourdough waffles, and I definitely need to get the recipe for these up on the blog. But we put the homemade ice cream on top and then smothered it in some maple syrup, and oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever had anything as delicious as this, especially like clean and homemade, and oh my goodness, you guys, it's so good. You have to give this a try, and definitely sign up for my newsletter, because I will be giving you guys a recipe for this, and I will be sending it out through my newsletter, so as soon as it's ready you can have that. So this waffle maker, you guys, I got from a yard sale for free because I asked the lady if it worked. It looked brand new. She said, I'm not really sure. I said, well, can I try it out and see? And she said, why don't you just take it? I said, okay. And it worked. A waffle maker for free, and it does perfectly. So good. All right, so this is another day, and I am making a lasagna. So we are getting ready to go to the lake. This is a full day event, so I wanted to go ahead and get the lasagna made in the morning and put in the fridge. That way when we got back home from the lake, I could pop it into the oven and we would have supper ready and not really have to do anything prepping wise later on in the day when you're exhausted. And we have hungry kids, and yeah, my husband's getting home from work, and so this was the day that I decided to do the lasagna. So I make my own noodles from scratch. It is egg noodles. We use flour. It's like a cup of flour and 2 eggs and some salt. And I think technically you're supposed to put the noodles in the fridge for a bit before you roll them out, but I don't. I just add a little bit of flour to it to keep it from sticking, and it works that way just fine. I ground up my beef. I sauteed my vegetables. I'm trying to think of anything else that I did. I shredded my cheese and basically just made the most delicious lasagna ever. So with these egg noodles, it's really hard to go back to box noodles once you've made them, because they're so delicious and so fresh. And the lasagna, my husband said, is probably his favorite meal right now. So it's really good when we have company over too, because I can just double up on the meat inside of it and make it for company, and it's plenty to serve everybody. But I have these attachments on my KitchenAid mixer, and they like roll the noodles out for you, which is perfect. They do make noodle makers that you can hook to your bar if you don't have a KitchenAid mixer. I'll try to put some links for you guys in the description box below if you're interested in making your own noodles at home. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, I'll put a link for those as well. But it just makes making noodles so much easier. We've made our own like pasta noodles too, because we have the attachment to make like the angel hair pasta. Oh my gosh. Like I said, it's so hard to go back from making homemade noodles to store-bought noodles when they turn out this good. So I just roll it through, and then you just gradually make it a little bit thinner. I don't make these lasagna noodles too thin because I want them to be able to kind of hold up whenever you cut through it. But I greased my pan, and then I laid my noodles on there, and then basically just layered on my beef and my vegetables, and then I added in some cottage cheese in there, which just is another leveling up on this lasagna. I gotta get the recipe for this lasagna too. So yeah, once that was done and layered up, topped it with cheese, and then I popped it in the refrigerator for the day. Once we got back home, I set the lasagna out so that it could cool to, or warm up, I guess, to room temperature. And then I popped it in the oven at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes. And then another 5 minutes on the broil, and let the cheese kind of get a little bit crispy on top, and it was ready to serve, and it was so good. Thank you guys so much for watching What We Eat in a Week. I hope that this inspired you to get to making some food from scratch, healthier meals, and get a little bit experiential in the kitchen. So if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. And let me know what your favorite meal to make at home is in the comment section below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.